In exploring Baldur's Gate, I've been pushing up some character tactica. We've been exploring some of the different quests that are out there, the structure of them, without giving away any spoilers, or at least doing my best no spoilers. But it brought up an interesting comment of your primary tune, the character that you're playing, your hero. This idea of a kind of a more active hero versus a passive hero. The idea of you can be a frontline fighter, paladin, battle cleric, berserker, barbarian, where you're very engaged in dealing damage and really getting into the mix, fighting, not only going through the quests, but fighting some really iconic and amazing D&D creatures. And that's, I think, one way to play the game because it's very, very direct. And it's sweetened in that there's some really awesome, without giving away spoilers, there's some really awesome, potent magic weapons and armor that are just so cool, so geared up to be right there in the moment. But essentially, you're taking on an active role. Now, this active role is literally point and click and using clickies and using special abilities. You're not really on autopilot. You're deciding who to attack, when and where, and what to use. So you're actively engaged, whether that's with a mobile device or playing on the computer. Then on the other end, we've got kind of an active involved, but I don't want to say ranged, but a little bit more hands-off. A perfect example is like a wizard, a sorcerer, arcane. I'm not up there clicking on every enemy, micromanaging the fight. I've got my party doing that, but I'm there dealing damage. I'm there dealing buffs. I'm actively involved in the game, but it's kind of from an artillery or back support role. And of course, we have a number of character classes for that. But now we get into this, and this is where the question came in when we were exploring different character classes and different ways to play the game. This idea, if I'm the leader of the party and I'm supposed to be actively involved with heroics, if I'm playing a more passive character, a support character, how does that work? And I don't want to ask the question, is that a waste of the primary tune character slot? But was the game intended to play that way? And a great example of this type of build would be, in my opinion, Bard class, subclass, Jester. The idea that I'm going to sit there and play my Jester tune as long as I possibly can, confuse, create havoc. I'm going to be in the back. I might cast a couple of spells to start things out, but then I'm essentially going to sit there playing musical tunes. That means while that's happening, essentially my primary character is taken out of the mix. I'm going to have to rely more aggressively on my party members, whether they're fighters or support, arcane, ranged. They're going to be doing a lot of the clicky, heavy lifting while my primary character kind of sits back. And you might also see that with some charms and other type of builds. I think a secondary great example also is playing a sorcerer, where you have your fixed spell slots. Eventually when, like most RPGs, when things at the higher level, everything comes full circle and you have everything. Got tons of gold, got tons of spells, got tons of everything with the scale. But what we see with sorcerers, some spells are better than others from the meta perspective, yes, but you might take some defensive spells, you might take some offensive spells, some damage spells, and a mix of the two. But as a sorcerer, you could say, I'm going to go full support spells. I'm going to be not a backline caster, but a completely support thing in that I'm going to do buffs, I'm going to do protections, I'm going to do invisibility, I'm going to do charms, I'm going to do summons, where really you're kind of sitting back there pulling the strings and hanging out, again, while the rest of your party does that heavy lifting. Now, there's no right or wrong way to play Baldur's Gate, and of course, your player personality will come in on the table. So if you're like, look, I'm the frontline fighter, I always am, right? I play tabletop D&D, I'm the paladin, I'm the fighter, I'm the berserker, I'm the barbarian. As you naturally play through the game, there are going to be a few plays where you want to try something else, try something completely different. And you're going to go in from that perspective and play it focusing on that. A lot of different ways to explore it. The only place where it breaks down a little bit, or I should say where you need to be aware, We talked about playing with a party or without a party. The game kind of assumes for the full narrative RPG experience that you're going to have some followers and party members with you. Now, what that looks like and who you select, and do you run with the same party through the whole thing? Do you add and drop? We put that aside for a moment, but it's more from the perspective of if you're playing through just by yourself, and I explored that and pushed that up to the BG archive, you need to be a little bit more active. Martial class, frontline fighter, battle cleric. If I'm playing a sorcerer or wizard, I could do it. I've got some summons for blocking and things like that, but I'm going to need some area effect spells. I'm going to need some attack spells. I have run through the game playing a jester just because we're using the jester, but I don't use that song as much as possible just because it's only me. And I am forced, even with blockers and summons and wands and area effect things, I am forced a little bit more to get into the mix and mix things up from that perspective. So if you're playing solo, it is going to be a little bit more front-loaded where you need to be more clicky intensive and clicky active. But if you are playing with a full party, maybe you can sit back and sing a tune. Maybe you can sit back and just do some buffs. And it's the pure charisma of your primary tune where others just do your bidding. Just think of like total lawful evil or neutral evil from that perspective, as opposed to chaotic good getting into the mix, or chaotic neutral where anything goes. So you can really play some of those alignments very, very interesting and totally be in the game just hanging back, doing your thing. But this idea of, yes, a lot of different ways to play the game, to approach it. And naturally, by player personality, we're going to gravitate towards certain styles and classes. But there are other opportunities out there as you explore through the stories and the quests again and again and again.